Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Lawyer Breakdown, a show with a unique perspective on everything from the mundane to the arcane. My name is Bradford Cady. I'm your host, and I am joined yet again by Dr. Joseph Ramos. Dr. Ramos, how are you today?
Hey, good to see you again, my friend. I always like to start with our high five or fist bump. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. So we left off at the end of last episode kind of talking about your new life with Paige and the kids and rocking the teaching medicine, or well, I guess not teaching medicine, but teaching new residents at the University Hospital in Denver.
Yep.
That's a 10-year time frame. Mm-hmm. But, that's a lot of practicing that you got to do in the state of Colorado. One of the other things that we mentioned was that you get asked to testify as an expert witness by attorneys in the state of Colorado somewhat frequently. Mm-hmm. But before I get ahead of myself here, we have to answer last week's question.
Oh, that's right.
Right. Speaking of procedures. Yes. Okay, so what I asked you to come prepared with was a procedure that you would see in trauma medicine that sounds complicated, but it's actually simple. So we had a dislocation and fracture with a replacement, or what did you call it? A relocation. Relocation. Mm-hmm. And then we have a central line.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then we had a thoracotomy.
Thoracotomy.
Oh,
yes.
boy.
No, you did great. I'm impressed.
I don't know. My Latin's okay. It's been a few years. Okay, so
you sound like those attorneys that used to in trial.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, a little sneak preview for later this episode.
That's right.
Okay, so I picked B, the central line, but our audience picked C, the thoracotomy. So which one of those is actually simple, even though all three of them sound relatively complex?
Audience is right.
Audience is right?
Yes. So the thoracotomy, sounds really complex because you're opening up a chest and you're cross-clamping an aorta.
There's so much in there.
There's a lot in there. But the fact is, you only do it on people who are either dead or really dying within seconds.
Oh, wow.
And so the result of that is it's not a cosmetic procedure. You're not going like this with your scalpel very nice. It's like, if you're a hunter, it's like gutting a deer. You're cutting, spreading, clamping.
Okay.
And
matter of seconds.
Yes, and you can't really mess up. You just get good exposure, so it doesn't mean you open it wide, the chest. It doesn't have to be small, pretty cut.
Yeah.
And there's only a couple major structures you're looking for. And so it's actually pretty simple. It's a bit of a harsh procedure, I guess might be a gentle way to put it.
Sounds like
it. But it's fairly straightforward.
Okay. So, but that central line is as complex as it?
There's a lot of mistakes made with central lines because what happens is, and when I was teaching them and doing them, we were using primarily just landmarks. Nowadays, they've got advanced ultrasound capabilities. You can guide your needle in.
Sure.
That's made it a whole different procedure. You can see the targets like walking up to a dartboard and putting it in the bullseye.
Oh my gosh.
But back then what we were doing is just using landmarks. So, use the sternal angle, use the angle of the clavicle, aim at that, and you're kind of fishing. Below you is the lung. You can hit it and puncture it and get a pneumothorax.
Oh my goodness.
There's a nerve and a vascular bundle that runs through there, an artery, a vein, and a nerve, and you're trying to hit the vein. And so there's a lot of mistakes made with that where you either place in the artery or puncture an artery and then they bleed into the chest, or you puncture the lung and they get air in the chest.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it's one that sounds simple but is quite complex with mistakes. And the reason the fracture dislocations are difficult are because, number one, you want to get them timely reduced because they're not getting good circulation. Second thing is there's often bone pieces and fragments, and sometimes they get into the area you're trying to get the bone back onto, and it doesn't make it line up perfectly. And they tend to be a painful procedure, so you have to knock the person out, so you're managing anesthesia and sedation while you're managing getting a fracture, relocated. Yeah. And it often requires breaking it more to relocate it. So that's the reasoning.
I think of recent significant NFL injuries. I think Cam Scadaboo last year and Dak Prescott however many years ago. Those are tough to see on TV.
Tough to see on TV, and treating them in person equally
complex.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so let's get back into our story.
Yes.
Because one of the things I was thinking about in between the last episode and this one is, like I was saying, 10 years is a good amount of time for working in Denver in this, emergency medicine space. Mm-hmm. On average, what is the level of frequency that you're getting asked to testify by attorneys in Colorado? Let's say every 2.5 years or so. So 25% of your time, Does it happen more frequently near the end of that 10 years? Is it happening more in the middle? Like, talk to me kind of about how often you're approached by attorneys that say, hey, you're good at this. Come to court.
So first of all, the more experience you get with time in the hospital, because you're also writing papers for Journal Club, doing studies, clinical studies with residents, doing different things. Right. And that's all building your CV.
Okay.
You're giving talks. You get invited to lecture at different places as a professor at the university or whatever. And so you're giving talks and your CV grows and grows. The better your CV looks, the better you are as an expert.
Okay. Yeah. So it's going to time you get through.
That's right. So so it increased steadily throughout my career. And even after those 10 years, I did another 5 years of private hospitals. So almost 15 years total. And it just increased and increased and increased along the way. But it was by year 10, of course, that I knew that I was going back to law school. Actually, it was probably year 8. I knew I was going back to law school. But I had started at that point to be requested quite a bit. And if you think about an emergency department, the type of cases that there are to testify on, they're endless. So if a person comes in with a 70% body burn, surface area burn, and they later have contractures, means that when the skin basically melts down, it causes where their joints don't work properly. Somebody has to testify to what that causes in their life. Is it permanent? Is it not? What can you do for it? If somebody has, use the fracture dislocation thing.
Yeah.
If you dislocate your ankle, what's the future hold? You're going to need other medical procedures. You're going to need hardware removed. You're going to have future arthritis. If you walk with a limp, is it going to affect your hips? There's all of these medical downstream issues with just about any injury you can think of. If somebody gets shot and they can test it, the guy says the cop shot him as he was turning to move away.
Yeah.
Cop says no, he shot him as he was rushing at him.
Right.
Well, what angle did the bullet enter? What area did it exit? What's the entrance wound and the exit wound? Which is which? Who's telling the truth? It's endless, the things that testify as an expert.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's got to be a couple of these incidents, though, that really, prick your brain into thinking, these guys are ding-dongs. So is there a specific instance you remember, watching an attorney testify or watching and just thinking to yourself, I could do that? Do you remember a time?
Yeah, the day that I, on the whim, decided about law school. And I'll tell you about that in a minute, but over time, I've seen so many of them. So for every probably 50 reports you write or cases you analyze, you may testify in one.
Okay.
Because a lot of times you write the report and both sides submit it and it ultimately works out to a settlement. But every now and then one goes to trial. Imagine the number of reports I had to write. I've testified under oath over 100 times.
Wow.
And that's a lot. And
that's thousands and thousands of reports written.
Right.
Using that ratio.
Right. It is a lot. So I was doing a lot of expert work because doing shift work. I had a lot of days off every month. I love to work. I love to read. I love the expert testimony thing.
Yeah.
To me, it was like getting paid to play chess.
Yeah.
And which you can relate to.
I love that stuff. Oh, yeah. If somebody wants to pay me to play a one-on-one game like that, sign me up. I totally get it. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
That's exactly how it was. So I did a lot of it, really enjoyed it. And then on that particular day, I think we talked about a little bit at the last episode, I felt really bad. It was someone who had a spinal injury. And with spinal injuries, there's long-term deficits.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse. The repeat surgeries get worse. Everything is tough. And that needs to be relayed to a jury when you're explaining the impact on life. And if the attorney can't even pronounce the words properly, if they don't even understand the number of vertebral bodies in the different areas of the spine or how they work together and which ones move the most, which ones move the least, and blah, 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 how's a jury going to understand it? The attorney has to ask the questions so the doctor can answer and the jury can understand.
Right.
So knowledge in that case of the medicine is critical to present the law correctly.
Well, and not only knowledge of the medicine, but being able to make it sound relatable. That's a jury of your peers.
Yes.
Not a jury of fellow experts.
That's right.
They don't know. I mispronounced that word and I'm not even going to try again at the beginning of this episode, but it's exactly you have to be able to, as an attorney, speak to your witness and make sure that the jury understands. And you were seeing, probably, how many times did you feel like, wow, that attorney did a really great job getting my testimony out of me and making sure the jury understood?
About 10% of the time.
Yeah. Wow. It's an unfortunate percentage.
Yeah.
Because every single one of these trials, somebody's literally their future is on the line.
That's right. Imagine that's your mom or your dad or your kid and the real truth doesn't come out about them. And it's really heartbreaking. And what I realized is the ones that were good at it, that 10%, man, they studied, they'd meet with you multiple times. they would ask questions to learn. They would literally ask you, hey, how do you pronounce that word again? You say thoracotomy? Say, yeah, thoracotomy. They cared about the pronunciation to the jury. Other ones were just like, you meet with them, they meet with you once because they didn't want to pay to meet with you again.
Yeah.
They, and a story never got told right. And I always felt really bad for those people.
Because you were telling me at the end of the last episode about coming home and talking to your wife and being like, I want to go do this. Wouldn't that be cool if I could do it? And did she shrug and just go, oh yeah, sure, you're going to go do that again?
Well, what she said is, I said, if I was an attorney, they could run, they couldn't hide. And she goes, yeah, that'd be cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That was it. I remember
that'd be
day.
cool.
So I started looking it up and I saw this LSAT test, and I don't believe anything in life happens by accident. Everything's meant to be. And this is how my life was meant to be. So she had that comment. I looked it up. I found out they were given the LSAT a month later. Guess what it was? Nevada.
Oh.
We talked all about Nevada. I grew up at it. It was a chance to go home, see family, friends, everything. Problem was I was too late to register for the test unless there was a cancellation. Then you had to pay a $100 late fee and you could register. Guess what? There was one cancellation. I got the spot.
Wow.
Right? That's not by chance.
No.
That's meant to be.
Yeah.
So I registered for this test and I actually didn't think much about it because I'm working full time. At this point in my life, I've got kids.
Yeah.
I'm attending at the university hospital. I'm crushing. And all of a sudden, the week of the test, it was coming up, and I was like, hey, what's this thing about?
So you haven't even studied at this point?
No.
It's a week away?
I didn't even know what it was about. I thought maybe it was about constitutional law or something. So I went and bought a book, and what do you need to know to get into law school? Have you ever thought about this? It's kind of bizarre, right? Like, what do you need to know? Turns out, it's a bunch of mind puzzle tests. Things like if there's 5 pieces of pie and 6 are yellow and 2 are red and red moves by. Yeah, and so I read this book on the airplane going up to the test, and took the LSAT, applied to law school, was in, 8 months later or something like that. And
before we get into that experience, what is it like? Do you just come home to Paige and be like, hey, so I passed the LSAT, I'm going to go apply to law school. And she's like, what? Or does she know that you're going to go take this test? Like how does that?
Yeah.
So you've already got a very busy life, it sounds like. You're just going to toss law school on the top?
My wife has always been incredibly supportive. She knows that I love adventure, I love excitement, I love change. And thank God I have a wife who she's like all on board for it. She just grabs a hold and holds on, and away we go together.
Oh, that's awesome.
So on the test, it's not a pass or fail. You get scores on it.
Okay.
And I scored well on it. I've always, it's always been a thing in my life with tests I can do well on. Even when I don't know the material, I can do well on them. And I did well on the test. And when I got back my score, I remember saying, wow, how'd that happen? And then, I applied. And I only applied to DU, University of Denver Sturm College of Law, or Denver University Sturm College of Law. I only applied there because I live here and I got a career here.
Yeah.
I'm attending full time at the hospital.
So talk to me about juggling those two things, right? So you are still full time at the hospital, and you just decide to tack on law school. Law school is what, another
3 more years?
3 more years of school.
And it worked out great because everybody in the hospital hates working night shifts.
Oh.
They hate working night shifts. So I took nights, went straight nights for 3 years. My partners in the hospital, they loved me. They were like, Joe, dude, you're the coolest thing. I love you.
You're taking all the shifts we don't want.
Yeah, so I did night school. I did night shifts in the hospital and went to law school in the day. And I'd sleep in the afternoon and night shift.
Run it back.
Law school. And law school was enjoyable. It's easy. It's reading stories. There's no right or wrong. It's just applying the rule of law. I found it to be completely enjoyable. I couldn't even believe I was like this is what it takes to be an attorney, because it was so much fun.
That's awesome.
I'd always been in a career where it was right or wrong.
Yes. Well, the sciences.
Well, the sciences, but that's not how law is.
Yeah.
It's what's the best argument, what's the best position, because anything can be right or anything can be wrong if you apply the rule of law to a set of facts. And which facts did you pull is most important, and which did I pull?
Right.
And so I found it to be just a great time. And with law school, there's no residency. If you're going to ask, well, how's my residency? There is no residency when you get out. They're like, have at it, you're an attorney.
Oh, jeez. Have at it, you're an attorney is a hell of a sentence to hear on your way out of graduation.
Right. Yeah, in medical school, when you get your MD, you're a medical doctor, but you have to go 4 more years or 5 more years of residency before you do anything.
Yeah.
Not so with law school.
Yeah, they just kind of hand it to you.
You're out
be
there.
Like, all right, figure it out, buddy. So, okay, so you graduate from Denver University Sturm Law School. Is that what it is?
Sturm College of Law.
Okay, Sturm College of Law. And, I'm sure you've studied all kinds of different subject matters, but like, where did you get the idea of what area of practice? I mean, you could do real estate, you could do maritime, you could do personal injury, you could do where are you going?
Well, so I wanted to do something that helped people, and anywhere in law you can help people. And with my medical knowledge, it seemed like I would do something in that direction. So I could, for example, help doctors with contracts with hospitals.
Sure.
I could work on insurance refusals. It was still broad within the healthcare knowledge I had of how to apply it. But in my last year of law school, a firm actually called the professor at the law school, the torts professor, and said, "Hey, we heard you have this doctor over there who's becoming an attorney. We'd like to have him come over here and work with us. And can you set up a meeting?" Which I was honored. I was flattered, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the legal community knew me at that point because I had done all that testimony and stuff.
Yeah.
And
right. So the firms in the area already know who you are.
I've testified for all these firms in town. All the ones you see on TV, it's so funny. I used to be their expert.
Wow.
Now I'm their competitor.
Oh, man. Yeah. So, but they know, okay, all of a sudden this guy's decided to go to law school. Yeah. They ask you to come testify and you're like, sorry, can't, going to law school.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so one of the local firms calls and says, hey, we want this guy who we know is an expert, knows in the emergency medicine field, come work for us last year at law school.
Yeah. Wow. And so it was a tremendous opportunity, and and they're a very reputable firm, and I went to work there. I learned a ton. A bunch of my best mentorship came from that firm. But I didn't stay there because, just frankly, just to be honest, it was a little bit of a toxic environment, meaning that people weren't happy. Like, I love what I do, and I walk in with a joy. I wake up whistling. I mean, I feel so grateful for every day. And there was this edge, constant edge. Like if you walked in somebody's office, there was almost like a snarl they would look at you with. And I was like, man, hope this is not how all lawyers are. And this was a big, successful firm, and it wasn't fun. That's one of our core values here at Ramos Law. Our last one, have fun, right?
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. Part of where it comes from. There's a lot more to that, So that was my experience there. So I was there for a little bit, and then I left and immediately joined into a partnership with another attorney.
So you graduate law school. And when you graduate, that's the same time frame where you decide to leave the other firm. You're like, I'm not going to keep working here. Yep. So you finish your last year of law school and 1 year at the other firm, you graduate, and then you go find this other spot to work in, this other attorney's firm to work with. Are you still practicing medicine?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. And well, in fact, to this day, I practice medicine a day a week. But now I do it in 2 clinics I own, so I don't have to do any night shifts or holidays.
The night shifts and holidays off is probably going to be a big change.
That's nice. Yeah, that's nice. I love medicine. Mm-hmm. So I practiced through all of this. In fact, I was doing about probably 75 or 80% medicine and 20 or 25% law. Okay. Because working in the emergency department, shift work, 12 shifts a month, you're full-time.
Yeah.
Partner sharing or profit sharing partner with 12 shifts a month. So if you work a weekend or two, because you have to, because you're sharing with your other partners, you get a lot of time off in a month.
That's true,
18 days a month that you're off. And I've never been one to sit around.
Oh, yeah.
So I had plenty of free time, so I could still do my medical career and do the law stuff I enjoyed. And when I left the other firm I went to, I told you I had experienced this kind of toxic environment. Again, nothing happens by accident. Another real honor came along from the next mentor I had, who also taught me a lot. There was a defense attorney in town.
Oh, so you've done a little bit of defense work in your legal career.
I have done some, but that's not how this partnership came about.
Okay.
This defense attorney had worked on the defense bar for over 20 years, a partner in a huge firm here in town. And he wanted to do plaintiff's work. And he reached out and said, why don't we open a firm together? I know the other side's playbook. I've been doing it for 20 years. You clearly know the medicine and the law part now. I learned a lot. He knew what the firm I was at. Why don't we join together and form a firm?
How about it?
So we did.
Okay. So what year is this about? What year about?
Ooh, that was probably about 2010, because I think I finished law school and passed the bar in 2008. So maybe it was 9 or 10, right in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're still working full time
hospital, yep.
At the hospital.
Yep.
Okay. You open up this firm. You've got a defense attorney who knows the other guy's playbook, and you know the medical side.
And we started crushing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that go?
We started just crushing it. The firm was so successful. We had this little boutique firm with 4 employees, I think. And we literally were crushing it. I was learning a ton from him. I hope he was learning something from me. I don't know, but we were a force to reckon with. He was quite a bit older than me, probably 15 years older maybe or so. And what I realized in our partnership and why we wound that down mutually was we set different goals. He wanted to do 10 big cases a year, like 10 mothers against drunk driving type cases where a drunk driver hit and killed somebody.
Right.
And,
Semi-truck.
yes.
Or some awful accident.
Yeah, and I still wanted to just help people. So I was the yes man. People would call up. A doctor buddy of mine would call from the hospital and say, man, this family, they got hit and they've been going to this chiropractor and they bounced in and out of the hospital now for a few different nights. And I think, they need to maybe have an MRI done or something. And I told them, go see you because you could line them up with doctors to do it. And I would say, yeah, sure, send them over. We'll take care of them, right? I'll set them up with, good doctors and we'll find out what's wrong with them. And the doctor cared about their health. I cared about their health.
Yeah.
It just happened to have a legal angle.
Right.
Anyway, my partner didn't like those cases. He would say, it's not a big enough injury. And I quickly found that we had a difference of opinions in who we wanted to help. He had a much better business model than I had.
Sure.
But that wasn't that important to me at that point.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense, like big crash, big money.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Little crash, maybe not so much money.
Right.
But they're all people.
That's right.
Right. And
exactly.
All those folks are injured and every single one of them needs help.
Yep.
And so, talk to me about that separation, because it sounds like you obviously you have a different perspective on the way that you want to run that business, but what inspired you to say, hey, I'm going to move away from that and do my own thing in this space?
Yeah. So I had talked to him and said, I'm just not happy at all with this or with what we're doing. And I think he was shocked, frankly. And I think he probably thought I didn't appreciate what I had with him because we were so successful. And I did appreciate it. I just wasn't having fun. Because back then I wasn't having fun doing that. I didn't feel good in my heart doing that. And I told him that. And he's a pretty sharp guy. Sharp meaning both personality-wise as well as acuity and intelligence-wise. So he's one of these guys that like, fine, you want to be with me? No big deal. We're done. Yeah. So it was really good though, actually, because there was no big, long, drawn-out divorce or anything like that.
Right, right.
He took some cases and I took some cases. We went our own way and I started up Ramos Law, which is where we are today. And that's, of course, grown now to multiple offices and, over 300 employees and 60 attorneys now or something. And, and now we help a lot of people.
And that was the next thing I wanted to ask you about, is that obviously your split away from that business model and your prior partner to, the kind of values that you based the firm that you've started on your own today. Tell me a little bit more about the inspiration of building those values. I know what the core values of our business are, but talk to me a little bit about where those came from and kind of like why do you think that's so important?
I realized that I had been blessed with two wonderful law experiences with really good people with really a lot of knowledge, but hadn't found happiness. And I knew that then what that meant is to find happiness, I had to go back to my values. And so that when Ramos Law started, we based it on those values. People don't know this, and except the people listening to the podcast now, but they're actually biblical values. But they're put in a way if you hammer people over the head with Christianity, they'll run. Yeah. Right? For all the wrong reasons. And I get it. That's society nowadays. But if you act in a way that's important to you from a core value perspective and happens to incorporate those, hey, good. And so, we care deeply. We communicate openly. We always pursue excellence. We always put others first. And we have fun doing it. That's our 5 core values. And it ends with that have fun, that part I was missing.
Yeah.
And it has the other values that are deep to my spirit that are my joy from here. If you notice, none of them talk about money.
Yeah.
None of them talk about a great trial strategy. And they're core values that fit in medicine, they fit in law, they fit in life, and they fit me with my personal beliefs, my faith beliefs.
And I think there's a really interesting contrast between the emergency room and Ramos Law's injury, the injury side of Ramos Law, where it's like when somebody gets wheeled into the emergency room, they need help now.
That's right.
You don't get to ask them, well, hold on, Can we get your card out?
Yeah,
Or like,
your
you know,
deductible.
what's the last
Your
four
copay.
of your credit card? You know,
right.
we're not doing that. Like the guy needs to get into the emergency room when he needs care now.
Yes.
And I think that's a really interesting contrast to the concept of a contingency work for an injury firm where it's like, hey, you need help. And so we're going to remove this concept of risk or concern for cost and make sure that you get help. And
you hit it right on the head, Bradford. That is one of the things I love about what we do is we help first and we're paid later.
Yeah.
And that's the same with emergency medicine, as you said. And it's the same with here in our law firm. We help first and we're paid later. And if we don't help enough, we don't help right, we don't win, you don't pay.
Right.
And you know, that feels good because I don't feel like I'm hurting anybody, but I'm helping a lot.
Right.
And thank God I'm surrounded by a bunch of people like you, like everyone in this building, and in all the offices.
Oh, yeah.
That feel the same way.
Yeah. No, and that's something that what I've loved doing here at the firm is I've connected with that spirit and concept, and I've really, really enjoyed working for somebody who cares that much about the values that the company's built on. And it's awesome to get to kind of interview you and go back and forth a little bit about it. And you know, this timeline kind of brings us up to today, right? Yep. We've covered your early family life, we've covered your early school career, meeting your wife, kids. We talked about your medical career. I think the only thing that I'm missing that I want to top off here is like, how did you full circle with your desire to fly? You know, we talked about in episode 2, you know, the broken windows and the sonic booms with the jets. Like, did you ever get back in a cockpit?
Yes.
Because, I mean, you've got a million things going on up to this point, right?
Yes.
What about flying?
Yeah. So, you know, I love, I'm a passionate person about things I love to learn. And as you know, from the early episode, we talked about episode 2, passionate about flying. If you're going to fly for the military, of course, they're paying. So it's easy.
Right.
If you're going to fly privately, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until 2001, till after I had finished residency and started and I had a nice contract as a physician, that I had enough money to fly. So first thing I did in 2001, 2 things. First thing, one, I fixed my eyes, had surgery done. Remember that 2300 vision that was one of the military hurdles? Fixed my vision, it's perfect. I see like a hawk now.
Okay.
And I bought an airplane and started learning how to fly. And now I'm on my 5th airplane. I fly frequently. I also fly helicopters. And I have a helicopter. I love that as well. Flying is my passion. It's a sense of freedom like nothing I can ever explain to you. And hopefully we get to talk about that on some episodes coming up because I'll tell you about near crashes. I'll tell you about the most beautiful things I've seen.
We've got a ton of subject matter in that space to break down in the future, and I can't wait to get to it. But I think this is a good wrap up for an intro to the Doctor Lawyer Breakdown. Right? We got to know the Doctor Lawyer. We learned about your past. We learned some about your present. And now we kind of get to travel into the future and say, hey, what's something interesting that's coming up that we can use now that we framed your perspective? How can we take that perspective and really kind of take apart current events, past events, rulings? We talked about in episode 1, the intersection between medicine and law. What's in that zip code? And now that we kind of have a framework of, you know, how you're going to break that stuff down for us and where you come from, I can't wait to get to some of those topics.
Oh, this is going to be the fun part because there are so many interesting overlaps and cases and things that we can talk about, medical topics, legal topics, both.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait. So I can't wait for our next episode. And it'll be interesting to see what you hit me with on where our intersection's going to hit.
I've got so many ideas cooking. It's going to be tough to pick the first one.
Beautiful.
But as usual, to sign off,
okay,
I want to discover, like, okay, this is the scenario I was thinking about. We're at a bar. We're hanging out. Okay. There's some bar games around. What bar game does Dr. Ramos not want to be challenged at? You're a competitive guy. You love to, maybe you don't have to win every time, but you hate to lose. That was one of the things we said a couple episodes ago.
Yes.
So what is the grown test game? Like if I challenge you to darts, or you're like, oh crap, I'm terrible at darts. Or maybe it's cornhole or something else. Give us a couple multiple choice options and we'll play along with the audience.
What do I think you could beat me at?
There you go.
Pool.
Okay.
Shuffleboard. Or trivia. You know they do all this barroom trivia nowadays?
Yeah. Okay.
Pool, shuffleboard, or trivia.
Okay, and my answer is going to be what I think you're the worst at, what I think you'll lose at. Okay.
What would I lose at?
Pool, shuffleboard, trivia. Boy, maybe this is a little mean, but I I think you're old enough for shuffleboard.
Whoa,
I think you'd smoke me at shuffleboard.
Shuffleboard. Okay. That's you pick. We'll see what the audience says, huh?
Well, I'm going to pick trivia because I think that. Or wait, no.
You think
you'd beat me at trivia. I think.
You think I'm best at? Oh, okay. Remember, you're picking. The audience is picking what I'm worst at.
Yes.
Pool,
This is a tough
shuffleboard,
one.
or trivia. Yeah.
I think I'm actually going to go with A. I'm going to go with pool.
Pool. Okay.
I think you're the worst at pool. But audience, you heard the man. Play along with us in the comments. Drop an answer what you think Dr. Ramos is the worst at the bar games. And hey, hopefully you see him around the Denver area. You can give him a challenge.
There we go.
Hey, this has been a pleasure, Dr. Ramos. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for so much for answering some questions. And let's see what we can crack open on the next episode of the Dr. Lawyer Breakdown. We'll see you then.